What is up, jabronis? JJ back here live talking a little MLB. I'm going to run down the slate like I usually do. Talking through the games and giving you some betting perspectives. I also have two bets that I like for today. So, of course, you'll get that as they come. Interesting thing about today is there is a lot of chalky favorites. That's for sure. I think there's only out of the 16 games because the Astros have a doubleheader. So, out of the 16 games, I think there's only 4 lines that are less than $1.50. And I think there's only one line that's a true pick 'em. Everything else is like $1.25 or worse. It's a chalky day. So I'll talk about maybe how to approach days like today where, maybe if you like betting chalk or you bet, money line favorites or whatever as parlays, then maybe not the end of the world for you today. But if you're somebody who likes dogs, like I'm typically a dog better. An interesting kind of thing to take into account for a day like today where we have enough action, but it's really a lot of heavy favorites. What's up, Bruce? What's up, John? So Pitt team total yesterday got over. Was kind of as I expected it. Kim's been good, but Kim offers up a lot of foot traffic, and you play with fire long enough. I mean, that type of stuff happens. It was nice to see the Pirate sticks continue to get going, especially against a lefty because they really haven't been good versus lefties this season. Not that they've been great versus righties either, but lefties they've definitely been worse against. So it's nice to see them kind of step up and put enough pressure on the lefty there, and then get that early in. So I think 3 innings ish was when the bet cashed. What's up, Loa? So wish they were down going. So what's up, Alpha? Great yesterday, parlay with WNBA. So that's awesome. Glad you made some money. Need some action on games in the background. Yeah, John. So hopefully that'll be what happens here. And then Bruce, yeah, of course, I'll run down these games for you, give you some perspective. What are we looking at here? So I guess I could just start. The first game, 1:00 game. There's only one 1:00 and then a few 2:00. Then I'm also going to be running around today. Believe it or not, my father. Yes, some of you might know him as the Fax Man. He's in town today. We have a surprise party for one of my uncles tomorrow, so he's in town. Believe it or not, we're going to go bowling. Yes, I'm going to meet him up. We're going to go bowling. Him and my little sister are going to challenge me in the bowling chain. I'll be honest, I'll lay. I mean, we're going to give him bumpers too because, we're pretty good bowlers, me and Christian. So we'll I'll be honest, I'll probably lay like 60 pins. Even with them having bumpers, it won't matter. But anyway, back to baseball. What's up, Jorge? Panda. Okay, so today, and then Alpha, I'll get into that once I touch on the game. So today, first game up. I know, right? It takes you 5 minutes just to get to the games. But, here we are. So first game up, Tigers, Astros. Now, Casey Mize and Framber Valdez. Now, both pitchers have thrown well this year. Valdez definitely not as good as that 167 shows, though. His whip's been good. But believe it or not, like what I find so interesting about Valdez is when a guy walks as many guys as he does and his whip is still under 1, it really promotes how fortunate he's been. And then you look at his batting average on balls in play and it's like 220 or 230. So you kind of know that's where it's kind of happening. And you'd expect that to kind of progress up or regress up, if you will. Overall, I debated on actually hitting the Tigers team total in this game. My issue, their lineup. So as we know, this is a doubleheader today. And the Tigers decided to go a little light on this lineup for game 1. I assume all the guys that are sitting game 1, like Baddoo and Mazzara, and even I think one of their second basemen sitting as well, Castro maybe. I'd expect all them back for game 2. I no longer like the team total over. Look, it's a 7-inning game. You hang a total of 2.5 for the Tigers, and you guys should know by now if you watch these shows that I like these spots where you get the dogs that nobody likes to bet, and you bet their team totals over because they're light, and you can accidentally score runs like this in these types of games. But believe it or not, despite how I think Valdez could get himself into some jams this game, I do not want to back it with this specific Tigers lineup. So this one's going to be a pass for me. And again, I don't want to lay the money with the Astros. The Astros have been playing really well or hitting really well, which isn't like a crazy surprise, right, with all the bats they have. But they're in the middle of a pretty good streak. Collectively, and they're not a team I want to step in front of right now. So while it's 200, it's going to be a game I completely pass on. Mize has been good, but he'll be challenged today. Overall, just going to be a pass spot for me. So Twins, Indians now. The Twins are slowly kind of churning along some wins. Now, how much can you really make of it, right? I mean, they get Maeda on the hill today, and yeah, he's a $170-ish, and I wouldn't lay that personally. But I'll be honest, I don't like any spot in here. Now, Hench is, I mean, look, he has not been good by any means, a whip of near 2, and now he faces a dangerous Twins lineup. And I'm looking at their lineup here, and this is Buxton's out obviously, but and they have a bit of a black hole at the bottom of the lineup as well. Either way, this is not a spot I really want to target in any facet. I'd argue based on these lineups, and I'd expect Maeda to kind of, for the most part, do pretty well in damage control versus Indians lineup. I would very, very slightly lean under at 9.5, and that has a lot to do with the black hole that currently exists in the Twins lineup today. And I even argue it's an even bigger black hole in the Indians lineup at the bottom half. I mean, Bobby Bradley is hitting 5th. But overall, I would very slightly lean under. This won't even be a game I look to live bet. Just giving you a little perspective. Again, Henches has been bad, which, especially with the way the Twins hit home runs, could make you start to think, that runs can pile up. It's kind of like when you bet like unders with the Yankees, and it's the problem is that most times you'll feel comfortable about it, but it's like when you bet totals like this, and a 2 or 3 run bomb always hurts. And the Twins definitely have pop, despite having a bit of a black hole at the bottom lineup. Guy like Sano hits like 180, but has like 17 or 18 bombs, and obviously at any moment he could hit a big one. So either way, I don't love the look, but a very slight lean under the number at 9.5. What's up, Adam? Okay, so White Sox Mariners. So Lance Lynn, Logan Gilbert, another game where a pretty large pitching advantage in favor of one team. You're going to see that a lot today, actually, as we run down these games. Pretty common. I really dug through this slate, and I just couldn't find a whole lot that made a lot of sense. But again, I have a few bets that I really like. So look, Lance Lynn well deserves to be a $190 here, a $185. Seattle been interesting though, right? I mean, this team is over 500, which is kind of crazy. When you look up and down this roster, it's like, I mean, where is this team finding wins? But their sticks have been good. They've won, 6 of 7 or 5 of 6, something like that. And even, I mean, I'm going down even further. You're looking at like 9 of 11 games or 10 of 12. This team is swinging the bats really well. Lance Lynn, though, is so good. And it's very tough. Now, Seattle can't hit lefties, so the fact to get a righty is not as bad. But again, if you look at them, they also can't really hit righties because they're one of the worst in the league versus righties as well. Which again goes even further to the point of how is this team above 500? They have bad pitching. Their hitting's been very sparse, but they've been winning close games, which matter, especially recently. And yeah, I mean, this is definitely not a spot I want to step in front of the White Sox though with Lance Lynn. However, with that in mind, this is also not a spot where I think you can feel comfortable to back Seattle, even if you grab the 1.5. And I really say that because Lance Lynn is just so tough to get runs against. I mean, this dude is a typical quality start machine, and Gilbert is quite the opposite. Now, granted, Gilbert hasn't been awful, right? But, low whip, ERA is not terrible. He'll be challenged a bit today, and he's not exactly an innings eater either, and I always get worried about this, a team like Seattle in their pen. Look, overall, it's going to be a stay away spot for me. I'm just going to peek the lineups real quick. I mean, the Mariners lineup looks okay. The White Sox lineup looks like a near opening day lineup. So, yeah, either way, this is going to be a complete avoid for me. I got arrows going in different directions all over this game. I get how someone might say there's value on Seattle, primarily because they're hitting really well. They're keeping themselves in games. They're winning close games. However, Lance Lynn is just so good, and it just puts a lot of pressure on Gilbert to have a really good start. And not to say he can't, but just going to be an avoid spot for me. Okay, so Cardinals, Pirates. Now, for me, this is the best bet. Me, it's right back to the well. Pirates over their team total 3.5. I get it. This team will let down one of these games. Will it be this one? Kind of like I said in the last video, I prefer Pittsburgh when they're playing against a right-hander because they're just built better to hit righties based on their lineup up and down. They are sitting a few guys, though, which I find interesting. So Colin Moran's in there. Polanco's back in there. I'm surprised they sat Ben Gamel today for Kai Tom because, Gamel, at least to a certain extent, hits righties okay. But I get it. And Eric Gonzalez starting as well. for Newman. This lineup to me is more than potent enough to put Wainwright into trouble. And Wainwright, again, another guy that's somehow elevated his K rate, despite him not throwing hard at all. He's got a better K rate this year than he's had last year, and I think maybe even the year before. But his walks are still an issue. He's going to find himself in trouble. And again, Pittsburgh's finding ways to score runs. I mean, I can't express this enough. They're doing what needs to happen to get guys in scoring position. And then, look, from that point on, you just need a bloop from there to get you over. For me, 3.5 might even be, I think you said even money, Jay, at DK. So over 3.5. I actually got that 105 myself at MGM. Hold on, put it in your Pirates team total. And what I do like as well is the fact that the Pirates, the Cardinals, used one of their better bullpen arms yesterday for about 30 pitches. They also used one of their, I don't know if it's the closer or their hold guy, one of their better hold guys. He only pitched like 12 pitches though, so I'd expect him to be able to come back. But one of the other guys threw like 27 or 28 pitches, and I wouldn't expect him to be available today. Wainwright can at times eat innings. The total at 8, look, it makes sense. I mean, I know it might sound silly, George, but the total there, it's not crazy. Remember, it's a National League game. Brubaker is a better arm than I forgot who went yesterday. Crow. So, it's not like the Cardinals would be expected to score more runs. Total at 8 makes sense because, again, this park. So let me just look at the weather real quick because, again, like I said yesterday, this Cardinals park would go down for me as more of a pitcher's park than a hitter's park. But when it's super warm, it does translate to more of a hitter's park. And we got another sub 100-degree day, winds blowing out to left at 17 miles an hour, which obviously helps the opportunity for the home run ball. Pittsburgh, I don't think, put one out yesterday. But with that in mind, it's still they were still getting a ton of foot traffic, and I would expect that to happen again today. Again, there are lefty bats in the lineup with Polanco and Moran, give them a little more pop from that side. Again, wind's blowing out the opposite side of the field, though, but I still like them to be able to put Wainwright in some hot water and maybe, squeak some runs out again. Again, for me, these lines have to be this because Pittsburgh's not valued as a good team in the marketplace, which is fine and fair, but they've been hitting well. And again, the only thing I would say is it looks like, is Hayes sitting today? So Hayes sitting today makes a bit of a difference. I was looking at the line. I'm like, who's missing from this line? So Hayes is, I don't know why they would pick today to sit him. Usually I would expect that more of on a Sunday. But that does make a bit of a difference. But again, I still think this team's been potent. Brian Reynolds has been hitting the ball incredibly. And they're able to put a lot of lefties here against Wainwright, especially at the top of the order, and then mix it up at the bottom. And again, I wouldn't consider that bottom of the lineup a black hole by any means. I know that maybe some names you don't look familiar to you, but some of these guys do hit, and some of them have pop as well. So overall, and Brubaker, believe it or not, is the Pirates' best hitting pitcher. If you care about that, they've actually used him to pinch hit in games before. So all in all, yeah, I know that was kind of a bit of a long-winded answer there, but that's one of the reasons why I like the Pirates team total specifically over. Again, another spot where I don't want to target the Cardinals. Another spot where I don't want to target the Cardinals. I don't want to figure out what the Cardinals are going to do or not going to do against Brubaker. I just prefer to be on the Pirates, so I know we're going to get 9 at-bats in warm weather. They've been swinging the sticks well. Overall, that's the take. What's up, Keg? And I answered that question with the Pirates over. What's up, Buzzer Beater? So, so moving on. So again, that's one of the best bets. I'm going to have one more. Blue Jays, Orioles, Hyunjin Ryu, Keegan Aiken. Now, Ryu's been really good and really sound this year. Not to say anybody expected any less from him, right? He's always been good during his Dodger days as well. And Keegan Aiken, interesting thing with Aiken is he hasn't been nearly as bad as his ERA shows. He hasn't been great by any means, and obviously he's winless, right? But he gets himself into a bit of hot water. But for the most part, he doesn't. The walks are the big issue, right? He's walking almost 4 guys per 9, I bet, maybe even a little more. And look, when you throw a lefty at the Blue Jays, it's never really fun. So I get why they're this big of a favorite. However, I will tell you this about the total in this game. You might look at this 10.5 total and be like, oh wow, I'd smash this over. This is probably the highest number you'll see for a total at this park in Toronto, or one of the highest numbers you'll see. Maybe 11 peaks at this park at times. But again, for the most part, that's more or less the peak number here. And on the Orioles side, they're another team that's been swinging the sticks relatively well for their standards. And I always say this, like sometimes I'll be like, oh yeah, this team's hitting really well. And you'd be like, well, no, they're not. They're only scoring like 3 runs a game. But remember, when I say well, I mean in terms of what their standard is or what their baseline is. Because remember, you're betting Major League Baseball. You need to put certain teams in brackets in terms of what you consider their ceiling and what you consider their floor. So if I mention a team I believe is to be hitting well, that's going up against that team's standard. I'm not going up against the league's baseline. I'm going up against that team's standard. And I think that's how you have to handicap this sport. And to be honest, I think that's how you have to handicap most sports. I think most people look at sports as a whole and then handicap certain things. But you need to create yourself almost like an indirect power rankings of sorts where you level out teams based on their floors and ceilings. And then when teams are playing above their means, but the market's not reacting to it, that's kind of when you got to strike. And the same thing with when a team's playing below their means and the market's not reacting to it. You often see this with bad teams playing above their means, the market not reacting. And when good teams are playing below their means, the markets don't react. And that has a lot to do with, full-blown perceptions, which I know, again, I'm going off a little bit of a tangent, but I hope that makes sense. Either way, the total here, while I do believe runs get scored here, that's a very high total for this park. So I will be avoiding. And I definitely don't want to be laying, anything with the Jays here at that number. But again, I don't want to step in front of them either. So either way, again, arrows point everywhere. Want no piece of this. Kyle Gibson for the Rangers going up against Kyle Zimmer for the Royals. What is there not to say about Kyle Gibson? I mean, what a year he is having. He has just been incredible. And again, he doesn't throw good stuff. He's a pure location pitcher. I mean, I'll be honest. I don't know if he pounds in cutters. I feel like that's one of his pitches. However, I do think that the Royals are going to struggle here against him, as is often the case with Gibson starts, especially at home. If you look at his splits, Gibson's been incredible at home, and deservedly so, right? Rangers Park kind of became a bit of a pitcher's park overnight a few years ago. We used to be, the National League cores, and then I don't know if it was a humidor thing or the way they reconstructed the park, but either way, the ball just does not carry out there like it used to. And overall, I look at a line here. Hold on one second. Let me just get up the line. I have it in front of me. So Texas 150. My issue with Gibson, and Gibson's been excellent, is that Texas is the type of team that I don't care who's pitching. They have no business being $150 against anyone. So again, this goes back to you putting your teams in brackets, and I get it that it's relative to their starting pitcher for the day. But again, a team like the Rangers and how their lineup sits and how they're hitting coming in, they have no business being $150 against anyone. So I'll call it slight value in favor of the Royals. But again, Kyle Gibson is not a guy I like or I enjoy stepping in front of. The total is a total I want no part of either, because the way Texas works is they hit home runs and they get a lot of outs. And I don't want to be on the poor side of a Texas home run day if I bet under, and I don't want to be rooting for home runs if I need them late. So overall, again, another game where I have kind of arrows going in different directions, but call it a small lean Royals money line plus 140, which primarily is because the Rangers have no business being 150 against anyone in Major League Baseball. What's up, Keg? Yeah, no, I gotta jump on one of the live shows you've been doing. I mean, the problem is I do a bunch of shows throughout the week. But yeah, I gotta jump on one of those shows. The NFL stuff will be fun to come back with. Now, Adam, do I think there'll be more overs moving forward? It's tough to say. I mean, the spider tack, right? It's clearly had an impact on certain pitchers. I also believe that the markets here have shown totals a bit inflated or a bit more inflated. So I think that the market's kind of taken that into consideration already. So that's kind of why it's tough to say right now. And I get it by the time we have that answer, the market will kind of correct itself fully and then we won't have any value. I just kind of take things as they come. Now, as you guys know, I've really always been an under guy. Last year, I started to bet a few more overs with the quote unquote juiced baseball. This year, we've seen a lot more unders with a lot more strikeouts. And I attribute that to being, believe it or not, I know this might sound silly, but I don't think umpires truly understand the strike zone. And there is so much inconsistency this season with umpire strike zones. And it's resulted in what I found to be a lot more strikeouts than there should be. I don't know what the training is like for umpires, but like there should be seminars of sorts where umpires sit behind the dish and have to get like 8 out of 10 right, or like 80 calls out of 100 right, or 85 out of 100 right. Because it just seems like over the course of a game, these umpires are getting multiple calls wrong, and and their strike zone doesn't even stay the same. Like, I don't even mind if they're getting calls wrong. If they're keeping it consistent, that's fine. The problem is they're not. So, yeah, I mean, I've never really been a fan of the quote-unquote robot umps. But, and because I've always felt that there's an art to the game of baseball. I always felt there's an art to the game of baseball with a pitcher understanding the umpire strike zone and then pitching to it, right? Like working with the catcher to develop that. And that's something that, I'm by no means a great baseball player by any means, but I grew up playing baseball, and that was always a thing, right? When I was pitching or catching, I played both. You lean on the umpire strike zone, the ump's giving you that bottom left corner. You just kind of keep firing at it, and I'm okay with that. But if the ump's giving you the bottom left corner in the third inning, and then in the fifth inning, he's not giving that corner anymore. Again, this is where it gets hairy, and it's the lack of consistency has been my issue. And I do believe that's kind of led to, because again, the game is built on, if batters are approaching every count 0-1 or 0-2 or 1-2, it has a big difference in batting averages over the course of a game versus 1-0, 2-0, 2-1, 3-1. So all in all, that's my little segment on that. Incompetent. Yeah, I'd agree, Adam. Incompetence would definitely be what I would say. I don't think the sport's rigged, but incompetence from umpires, or negligence, if you will, has been very tough to watch this sport at times this season. And I want to be clear, I'm not somebody that complains. I've been watching this sport a long time. I've seen it all. I think we all have, right? But this year in particular, it's been a bit egregious with these strike zones. And I think we all could attest. So if you've been watching this sport this season, it's been really, really head scratching. And sometimes it goes in your favor. Sometimes it doesn't. I'm not sitting here saying I'm whining about my losses. I just think overall, umpires need to be doing a more efficient job behind the plate, which makes the game as a whole, more watchable, if you will. What's up, Jonathan? Vital, Christian, and who would give the catcher a new ball? Yeah, well, that's true with the robot umps. How would that work with catchers? But either way, I'll be clear. I don't think that's ever going to become a thing, robot umps in this case, in sports. I know people talk about it, but it's like a pipe dream. It's never going to become a thing. I just hope that umpires, just get a little more consistent. I don't even know where I was. Oh yeah, no bet on Texas. Sorry, I know I went off a bit. No bet on Rangers Royals for me. Rays Angels. So Shane McClanahan, Alex Cobb. Total 7.5. As you guys probably know, I am by no means a Shane McClanahan guy. I think the kid has tremendous stuff. I think has some severe location issues, which come back to haunt him in most of his starts. And when I say haunt him, it's not like he becomes a gas can in the middle of starts, like every start. What I mean is he's a guy that finds himself in a lot of foot traffic jams, much like my guy Lance McCullers does. And I say my guy, he's not my guy, but that was a kind of sarcastic my guy. I just don't like pitchers that consistently need to wiggle themselves out of jams. And I think that goes without saying, right? It's pretty obvious. If a guy consistently has a whip high or walks a bunch of guys or has a lot of hard contact, these are red flags. And the sport can be very forgiving at times for pitchers who find themselves in trouble or hot water. But McClanahan is a guy that spends a little bit too much time missing his spots, and he ends up often paying for it. His stuff's, though, incredible. He's almost what I would call a rich man's Mitch Keller. Mitch Keller is a guy that has really good stuff, but has absolutely awful location and gets bitten by it all the time. McClanahan hasn't been getting his hand bitten as much as it's been going in the cookie jar, but for the most part, every time I watch him, I feel like he's vulnerable to get lit up every start. Alex Cobb, journeyman, right? Had some starts in Baltimore years ago. Guy's having a decent season. His K rate's not bad either. This is a spot where I look at a total 7.5, and for me, it's a slight lean over. I know this total opened 8.5 and it's dipped to 7.5. It's one of the main reasons why I have a slight lean in favor of the over. I'm interested in what these lineups look like. I don't think they're out yet. 4:00 game, they might not be out at this point. They're not, so that matters, right? But you throw a lefty at a righty heavy Angels lineup, and I know they still don't have Trout, but they still have potent righties. And you throw a righty at the Rays. The Rays have plenty of guys who can do damage. Rays' issue is when they play left-handers. So I do think they could do some work to Alex Cobb here. And I also think that McClanahan, as he does in almost every start, will find himself in jams. So a very slight lean over. I don't love it by any means because that's actually, I kind of capped it slightly above 7.5. So even though it's dipped to 7.5, I still don't have that all that favorable. But again, you want some type of lean of sorts. That's a spot I lean in that game. It has more to do with the pitching versus how the hitting is going coming in. Okay, so next game up, Reds, Braves, Luis Castillo, Ian Anderson. Yeah, so since he's minus 125 and don't look now, Luis Castillo might have some confidence brewing. I'm not sure what his last did. He didn't get lit up his last start, did he? I don't think he did. No. So we're talking about a guy who's now gone 3 earned or less in 4 straight starts. And we're starting to see a better version of Castillo, right? And this is the type of start where look at what we have. And I always talk to say this about Luis Castillo. He's home. He's pitching in warm weather. These are the times you want to back Luis Castillo. And I will say that despite this, I am not in love with this tag. And that has more to do with the respect I have for Ian Anderson. Now, I know that Ian Anderson's I would say he's kind of regressed a bit this year from last. Like last year, he was really good. And you used to look at his ERA at 3.33, and you're probably like, oh, what are you talking about? But if you watch him pitch and you watch his starts and you look at his advanced numbers, he's actually not having as good of a year as he was having last year. And I guess it's got to be attributed to location because velocity is not his issue. But I'd argue, any start you can get Ian Anderson at dog money is viable, especially with this Braves lineup, which is kind of why it's pushed me off Castillo in this start. However, Luis Castillo is starting to find his stride, and that's worth noting relative to this line because he is a guy that when he gets hot, you would figure, and no pun intended, he's pitching in hot weather. No pun intended, because he's good, and he's a guy that relies on a lot of confidence coming into starts. And you watch him; he's emotional. When he gets big Ks, he loves to cheer and stuff. So he rides high and low, just like other humans in this sport do. But at 125, it's just a little too thick for me to want to get in. If it was about 110, 115, I'd more than happily jump in. I just don't think Ian Anderson deserves to be an underdog in many starts, and this one I'd argue as well. But again, because I know Castillo's been pitching well, it's pushed me off Anderson as well. So just another game where I have arrows going in different directions, and it's not a spot I want to jump in. Can you imagine umpires grouping together if that's on baseball? So yeah, I really don't think that's happening. I mean, I know that people love to think certain sports are fixed, and I'm sure some are in some respects, but I don't. Baseball's not fixed. Panda, New York only scored 1 run through 4 innings. Was Vaseline event frame playing over 10? Oh, wow, I didn't even realize. So that game actually ended up going under. That's pretty crazy. That is actually pretty crazy. But when you think about it, Panda, I mean, the Yanks have a really good bullpen, and Boston's had a weirdly good bullpen this year. So I thought, it's not like crazy, but it is kind of unfortunate when you're basically counting your money when you have, 9 runs through 4 and you need 1 more run and you don't get it. Highest scoring game of the day. It's not really a bet I make, Sanjay, so I can't really even speak to it. I could tell you my highest implied total, but I can get you that after the end of the show. Mets, Philly. So Jacob deGrom, Zach Eflin. Yeah, so deGrom getting his typical tax, right? Who wants to fade this guy right now? A total 6.5, 7-inning game, right? Say no doubleheader? No doubleheader, yeah. So 7-inning game. 9-inning game. Low total for a 9-inning game. Zach Eflin's very vulnerable, which would when I want to bet against deGrom, I'd want to bet against deGrom when it's a decent pitcher on the other side. I don't know if this is the spot I really want to jump in front of him. The problem is like there's just so much pressure he puts on opposing pitchers to pitch so well. For my thing is if you wanted to somehow fade the Mets today, my angle would be bet the Mets under their team total. It's probably 3-ish, probably 3.5. Actually, it's got to be like 3.5. So for me, if you're looking to fade deGrom today, I would bet the Mets under their team total. It's not like the Mets. And I don't even want to say it because I'm not going to fade deGrom here. So it's not like I want to give you advice to do it. But again, if you were personally looking to fade deGrom today, I would advise instead of betting Philly, I would bet the Mets under their team total. Because again, deGrom is just putting so much pressure on opposing pitchers to throw so well, and he's just pitching so confidently right now. I know it's inflated into the market, but I'd argue to a certain extent, is it? I mean, he's only 250 here, and 250 seems like it's a big number, right? But there are days, years and years ago, when guys were regularly minus 350, minus 380 when they were pitching at home. And I know Philly's got live bats, so I'm sure that's included here. But overall, it's just going to be a stay away spot for me. I don't like to lay money with deGrom. When these numbers are this inflated, and could Philly on the road be the team that kind of gets to him a bit, maybe, but I'm gonna stay away. Okay, so next up, Brewers, Rockies. Adrian Hauser, Antonio Senzatella. The Rockies yesterday lost a very heartbreaking game, up 4 runs in the 7th, and not only let them come back and tie it, and then they ended up losing it in extra innings. His team is winning sub 17% of their games on the road. This is actually historically bad, and I'd go as far to argue that you could accidentally win more than 17 games in Major League Baseball on the road. And while I do think that should progress a little more to the mean over the rest of the season, there is a point now, if you're the Rockies and your own mentality or mindset coming into games, this team is just not confident playing baseball on the road. And it does make a difference because, remember, you are dealing with a human element. So, this team's not exactly finding confidence when they play on the road. And maybe if they can win a few games in a row, maybe they might find that. But I just think right now you'd be crazy to bet on this team in road games at prices like 170, because I don't know if the market's really taking it into account enough. Now, granted, they could win today and they could win tomorrow. And I would just need to see more sustainability before I wanted to back this team, especially on the road. And Milwaukee with Hauser's been a great arm for them. But the Brewers haven't exactly been hitting. So it's not like I love them in this spot either. And under might make sense, but this is a fairly low total for a game in Milwaukee in warm weather. And Senzatella's been okay. And Hauser's kind of fallen off a bit recently, but I still consider him a good pitcher. Overall, again, I mean, I hate to keep doing this with you guys, but again, on a slate where there's a bunch of big favorites, it makes it difficult to really hone in and find valuable bets. This is not a spot where I personally have any value on any side. I have the line fair, and I don't want to bet on the Rockies, a team that's struggling to win games on the road. Okay, so Marlins Nationals, Zach Thompson, Patrick Corbin. I will be honest. I have slight value here on the Nats. The Marlins played really well yesterday, but they got a below average lefty. Today they get a bit of a better lefty in Corbin. Now, Corbin hasn't been great by any means. And what did scare me off this game was how well the Marlins did against Leicester yesterday. If maybe Leicester didn't throw as good, I wouldn't be as keen. I would have been more in on Corbin today. Because, man, the Marlins haven't been hitting, but they did find some sticks yesterday. And I know that they can be Jekyll and Hyde. And there was really no in the middle with this team. Like, when they're not hitting, they basically get 0 to 2 runs every game when they're not hitting. When they are hitting, it ends up being a 7 or an 8 spot. And trying to predict when that happens has been quite difficult, especially with this team. And I know they're 11 games under 500, but I'd argue even at this record, they've well overperformed expectations. All things considered, when you look at it from all angles. Overall, this is another game where at this price with Miami slightly favored, I think, what is it? Is it Miami 110? Yeah, so if you can get dog money on the Nats, I would call that slightly favorable, a lean, if you will. But anything worse, I wouldn't lay vig with the Nats in this spot. And again, I got a little scared off with how Leicester looked yesterday, which kind of pushed my numbers in a little bit of a different direction than I would have wanted coming in. And Corbin hasn't exactly been great either. So again, the Marlins definitely have enough bats from the right side that can cause issues. And I don't think a lineup. So looking at their lineup, and yeah, they basically started every good righty they have today. So this is definitely not a spot I love by any means. So it's call it another pass spot for me with a slight lean Nats money line. Okay, so game 2, Astros Tigers. This is going to be my second best bet. And this has more to do with the lineup the Tigers put out for game 1 and assumptions I'm making on what this lineup is going to look like in game 2. Total 7.5. Now, Willie Peralta, I don't want any part of what he's going to do or not going to do today against this Houston lineup. I also don't know who or what players Houston will sit for game 2. It looks like they started basically nearly everybody for game 1 except for Bregman. Unless Bregman's hurt, then I'm unaware of it. I don't think he is, though. It might be. Let me just peek real quick. Because if Bregman's not hurt, then they definitely started everybody that they show. So Bregman is hurt. So they basically started everybody that they normally would in game 1. So I don't know who they're going to sit game 2. I'd assume they're going to sit at least 1 to 2 bats for game 2 that normally start. So I don't want any part of what Houston's going to do or not going to do against a below average pitcher in Peralta. However, I do think Lance McCullers is very susceptible for this start. First of all, his start. First of all, it's a 7-inning game. Not to say that changes things all that much, but McCullers is a guy, and I say this, I feel like every time I have the opportunity to talk about him on these live shows, is a guy that just very simply finds himself in hot water all the time, like every start. And this has more to do with his walking problems, okay? He walks a ton of guys. And he doesn't exactly eat innings. I know he's got a few starts where he's gone beyond 6. And I'm not in love with this Astros pen anyway. So, pending how the Astros game 1 goes and who they use from the pen will lessen their ability to have arms for game 2. And I know that Valdez eats innings, so maybe Valdez can go a complete game 7 innings today. But you're looking at a guy who in his last start had a batting average on balls in play of 83. Yes, 0.83 or 0.083. And the batting average on balls in play for him, coupled with his walks, this is just going to be a problem for him. Left on base rate of greater than 80%, walk rate of 5. I mean, I don't know what his line drive rate is. I mean, 17, it's not terrible. That's probably right on par with league average, but a Sierra of almost 4.5. It's like, there is just numbers on McCullers that are such red flags. Soft contact rate of 13%. He is not a type of pitcher that should have an ERA of 2.9. Like, I'm sorry. And I know that he draws the Tigers here and he could mow them down, but based on this Tigers lineup from game 1, I expect them to have more of their starters in game 2. And thus why I really like their team total over 2.5. I got that at DraftKings in New Jersey at -105. So that's Tigers team total over 2.5 -105. And that was at DraftKings. I know that these bets are never exactly fun, right? You bet on bad teams to score runs, and even when they get people in scoring position, you'll find them doing silly things like, bunting into an out without moving runners over, or, strike them out, throw them out at a weird time, or a guy trying to steal third for the third out of an inning. I know you get to see these weird things happen with bad teams, but ultimately I really like I really like that second game spot for the Tigers. So, that's a 6:05 game. And I'll make sure that's game 2. Game 2 Tigers. Just in case you just joined, you thinking I meant game 1. It was game 2 Tigers, not this first game starting in 20 minutes. Okay, so next game up, that was Astros Tigers. Okay, so we only have about 4 games left, and these are a few of the later games. So Dodgers Cubs, Julio Urias, Alec Mills. Now Urias has had a good season. Obviously comes from the left side. 3.99 ERAs, advanced stuff is about that. The Cubs definitely have righties that can cause him some trouble. However, this is a big total, and I'm not in love with the idea of the Cubs scoring runs, especially since Urias has been really throwing poorly recently. And this is a typical get right spot for a pitcher coming back home. Let me just look real quick. Who did he play in this? I know he got lit up. I just don't know who he played. This could just update. You see, this show at times goes on a whim. It's not all scripted, if you will. And none of it's really scripted, to be honest. But so he goes at the Padres, 4 innings, 6 earned, and gives up a few earned in his last few starts as well. And he doesn't really go more than 6 innings often either. But he had a stretch where he was throwing pretty well to start the year, and then in the middle of the year, and then things have just really kind of fallen off for him recently. But this is a start you would think could be a get-right spot for him, which is why I kind of skewed away from it. I thought about the Cubs team total over. I think it was 3.5 at dog money, or it might have been just flat. No, I think it was 3.5. 3.5. And look, I know they have a lot of righties that can cause issues, but I just think if the Cubs go over today, it's going to be purely based on if they can get home runs off Urias. And they might. I mean, Urias' problem has really been the home run ball. It's kind of plagued him this year. So this could be the spot where that happens. He's given up 9 home runs versus right-handed bats, 13 home runs this season. That is a lot of home runs for a guy that doesn't get a whole lot of ground balls. But anyway, so I don't like making bets knowing I'll likely need a home run or 2 to go over. And I think the Cubs could hit home runs today against Urias, and maybe even the Dodgers pen. especially in warm weather. But again, I don't like making bets like that, knowing I likely need home runs. So I opted to stay away. However, that would have been my slight lean. Cubs over their team total at 3.5. Okay, on to the next game. Red Sox, Yankees, Nathan Eovaldi, Jordan Montgomery. Two pitchers who are very average, in my opinion, that have performed above expectation, which is why you might see that total at 10 and think under, maybe. But for me, these are just two average at best arms. I mean, Eovaldi throws smoke. He's one of the hardest throwers in the league, but he has so many location issues. He overthrows his fastball as well, which has gotten him into trouble early in his career. He's kind of evened out a bit, though, over the last few years where he's gotten better or improved. But I still don't think he's like a very good pitcher, and I'm not a big Montgomery guy myself either. And look, you throw a lefty at this Red Sox lineup, it's never all that fun either. But Boston at 125, I can't lay that with them here, and I'm not a Montgomery guy by any means. I've also said this to you guys before. The Red Sox are a team I have not gotten right this year by any means. This probably is no more proven than the fact of them being 14 games above 500. They are not a team I can get figured out. And I kind of put myself on a Red Sox ban over the last few weeks, and I'm going to continue that ban as well. I'm not going to bet on Red Sox games. And I don't mean that in the sense like I won't bet on the Red Sox specifically. I don't want to bet their games. They're a team I have not gotten right. And I think when you're betting sports, sometimes you need to realize there are certain teams that are a thorn in your bankroll. And then there are certain teams that have been fruitful to your bankroll. And I think you should be looking to target those teams that you've been more fruitful with and stay away from the teams that haven't been that. Because again, you can get teams wrong, and that's fine. You cannot consistently bet teams wrong or bet teams that you've gotten wrong, because then it becomes a money pit. And, I get it. Some people are stubborn and they'll find themselves down that rabbit hole. But, again, when you're in a hole, the last thing you should be doing is digging. And I found myself 3 or 4 bets too many, which hasn't even been a lot, to be honest, but 3 or 4 bets too many this year with the Red Sox. So I am off this team and betting them for the very near future. And that could change before end of season, but for now, I am off this team. My perspective on the Red Sox doesn't help anyone because my numbers are incorrect on this team. Okay, so Giants, Athletics, Alex Wood, Frankie Montes. Now, I am a Frankie guy. I like Montes. I know that his ERA is high and his advanced stuff's not great, but he throws hard and he has good off-speed stuff. He was having a tremendous year before he got nipped for the juice. And yeah, sure, maybe that was what was obviously helping it. But I think he's a really good pitcher. And Alex Wood, the crafty lefty, the journeyman, if you will, that's kind of continues to find success in this league somehow, some way with his like 90-mile-an-hour fastball and what I would consider slightly above average curveball. It's not an excellent curveball by any means. It's not like as good as like Rich Hill or Barry Zito back in the day, if you will. This spot here, slightly in Athletics. I just don't think the Athletics behind Montes should be a road dog in this spot. I actually have this line right down the middle at 110, but even there's not a lot of value because even there's only 10 cents of value, which again would consider this a lean. If you're looking for a little late night action, I do lean the Athletics here. I know the Giants have been good, but the Athletics are built to hit left-handed pitching with all the righties up and down their lineup. I know Canna's hurt, but they have everybody else, and Giants have been playing well, and that says nothing more than their record at 49-26. They've been really good at home, but do keep in mind the Athletics have also been good away from home. So a little bit of a chilly night in San Fran in the 50s, but I don't think the Athletics should be the dog in this game. And I do have them as a pick 'em in this spot. So if a little more Giants team were to come in late for whatever reason, and you can get the Athletics at like plus 115-ish. I know maybe some spots might be showing you plus 110. Plus 115 would be a fire for me. So if that number pops for you, that is a fire for me. But for now, I see it as right close to a very strong lean. We'll call that the strongest lean of this video. Oakland money line. I am seeing plus 110. That would be my strongest lean of the video. If it's skewed to 115, then for me it's a fire. And for people that don't understand that, like, because you might say, oh, well, I don't understand. It's only 5 cents. It would have, and the game wins. Like, oh, you just cost yourself money. But I mean, when it loses, you saved yourself money, right? I think that you need to create yourself brackets where, for me, it's usually 15 to 20 cents. 15 cents would be what I would consider right about favorable. 20 cents is where I really start to get things favorable. And then 30 cents is where I'll start making correlated bets for more than a unit. But again, if you're not giving yourself those brackets, you'll find yourself making a lot of bets you shouldn't. And you just need to be disciplined in that respect. And for me, again, this game becomes favorable at 115. No less. Okay, so last but not least, the Padres versus the Diamondbacks. I mean, what happened to the Diamondbacks? I don't know the exact numbers, but I think the Diamondbacks are like 7-35 or something over their last 40 some games. It's just insane. And now now what happens is the market does react, right? Because now you get a guy like Dinelson Lamet, who's minus 300. And Dinelson Lamet is a good pitcher, but he has no business being minus 300 against anyone. But with that said, the Diamondbacks are not a team that anyone in their right mind should be betting or backing right now with how they're playing. And Merrill Kelly is a pitcher that's often thrown better at home than on the road. And he goes on the road here against a very potent Padres lineup, which makes this very, very difficult to want to bet any specific angle in this game. You could argue for over at 7.5, but I mean, if the Diamondbacks continue to not hit, that puts a lot of pressure on the Padres to do a lot of the damage for you, and that is not something I want any part of. I know that Kelly will find himself likely in jams today, but that is not a game or a line I want any part of. I know that you have lay the run line with Padres there, Billy. Again, I can't tell you that I think Dinelson Lamet should not be minus 300 against anyone, and then go ahead and tell you to lay a run line with a home team, at 8 at-bats. So yeah, no, that's not a bet I'd be making. No, I gotta say it can't hit. Of course it can hit. The Diamondbacks. Diamondbacks are playing terribly right now. I mean, you could probably lay alternate run lines if you wanted with the Padres. But for me, it's an off spot. I'm not, you guys know I'm not a home team run line guy for the most part anyway. But look, when value is value though. I always say that too. I mean, if a team makes a lot, if a team's lined at 180, and they should be 260, yeah, I mean, bet the money line and bet the run line because value's to be had. But here, I just think you're getting a lot of market steam here, which is pushed this very unfavorable. And this is not how you bet this sport, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. If you've been betting the Padres during this little streak and you've been fading the Diamondbacks for the last few months, then yeah, look, keep doing that. But if you're just jumping in on a whim today and deciding now is the time you're going to bet the Padres laying a run and a half, do realize the marketplace or the betting marketplace has already this has inherent tax, if you will, betting the Padres, and that's why I cannot make that bet. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining in, and I hope this video was informative to all of you or most of you, some of you. As you guys know, Pirates team total over the 3.5 number, got that minus 105 BetMGM, and Tigers team total over 2.5 for game 2 versus McCullers at minus 105. That was at DraftKings. So it's really those two bets that I like as best bets. And I know bad teams, low team totals, always not exactly fun to bet, but those are the two spots I have the most favorable on what I would consider to be one of the more difficult Saturday slates in quite some time with all the big juicy favorites up and down the slate. But all in all, I wish you guys all the best of luck. If you bet NBA, got a big UFC card as well. Jay, Keg, and the team will have you hooked up there. Joey had a fighter interview yesterday with breakdowns, and then Keg had a video breakdown as well. We made a little money in tennis this morning. So that was fun. And then hopefully I can parlay this into some baseball winners tonight or today and tonight. But all in all, I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck. Tomorrow, it's going to be an earlier live show. I know that most of you won't be able to make it, but of course you can watch it back at the normal time. You just won't be able to, cooperate with us. It'll be me and Joey doing it. The live show tomorrow will be at 10 a.m. Eastern. I get it. I know it's early. Like some people, think like roosters aren't even up that early, but all in all, we have a few different things going on in the afternoon. I told you I have my uncle's surprise party tomorrow, so that's the time I can make. And then Holden does the DFS show at that time, so lesser of two evils. Either way, me and Joey will be here at 10 a.m. And again, the show, you could just watch it back the way you normally would at 12 p.m. It'll be there, but live we will be there from call 10:45 ish for that show going on. So stay tuned for that. Jay's gonna have his live show tonight for UFC, and then we got the NASCAR stuff tomorrow. So again, another busy pack weekend for us here at Run Pure. And look, check us out, runpurebets.com, see what we're all about. Code BETS25 off or get bets for a 25% off payment. And again, all in all, thank you again for watching. Stay safe, folks. As always, gamble responsibly. Run pure. See you tomorrow.